Welcome to another episode of the Knucklehead Chronicles podcast. This podcast was designed to let you know that you aren't the only one that took forever to get it together. So the rabbit hole that you have stumbled down will hopefully help you understand that just when you think it's over, it's only the beginning. Just because you were dealt a bad hand doesn't mean you have to keep it. Welcome to the Knucklehead Chronicles podcast.
And welcome back to another episode of the Knucklehead Chronicles podcast. Man, it's the man, DaGuru. Listen, man, it's been a while since I've done one of these. And I want to start out by saying this. 2022 was a rough year. And, you know, I know that we're into I know that we're into 2023, right? But there's so much, because I haven't done one of these in so long. You guys are probably wondering, Terry, where you been, man? We missed you. You know, haven't done a lot of these podcasts. I just came back to the panel edition of this a couple of Sundays ago. So I'm like, okay, I want to relaunch the Knucklehead Chronicles podcast. This podcast will be interview based, not on this particular episode, because it's just me. And I just want to kind of give you guys a little bit of the rundown and the update of things. That's what's been going on with me. 2022 was a year that I could pretty much, cannot even remember. I mean, it was really bad, and I want to give encouragement to people who had a rough 22 and are going into this year. We're 16 days into this new year, and it's like, man, 23 is where you at? Where the prosperity at? But before I get into all that, I just want to say happy birthday to my brother. My brother Rodney, my biological brother. He is 43. No, he's 44. He's 44 years old. So Rodney, if you get to hear this, man, happy birthday to your brother. I love you. I just want you to know that. Okay, so getting into my 2022 recap, man. So much stuff happened in 2022. Like I said, again, this is just an update going into the newest into this new year. I kind of wanted to put everything out there, and I want everybody to understand that life is, shit, man. Life's hard, and sometimes you get dealt a bad hand. Sometimes you make bad choices. You make bad decisions, things of that nature, and I'm gonna get in touch on a little bit of that. So if this episode wasn't long, normally my episodes run between 20 and 30 minutes long, but this might be a little longer, but we'll get into it. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. So my 2022 started off well enough, right? And, I had a good job. I was selling cars. I was doing my thing, providing for the family and things of this nature. And then life happened. My year really didn't get rough until maybe June, July. That's when it started getting a little rocky, in the middle of the year. But, we maintain things of this nature. Now, those of you who are listening know that my wife is the most important person in my life. And I made some really bad decisions and choices, but we'll get into that as well. But her father took ill, I think July, August of 2022, and he needed a liver transplant. And so my wife came to me and she decided, she says, well, honey, I'm going to go take care of my dad. And so I was like, okay, cool. You know what I'm saying? So that basically left me, a single father with two kids, and, with Javante being in treatment right now, and he's not in the home. So it was rough, right? So she leaves. Now this is in September of 2022. My wife goes up to, before that, my wife goes up to Wisconsin and she's spending time with her friends and she goes to a business conference and things of this nature. You know, still dealing with her father's stuff, you know. And so September the 2nd, 2022, I went to work. This is a Friday. I went to work like normal. My wife left that day to go to Illinois. And so, you know, she goes and I go to work. By the end of the day on September the 2nd, I was without a job. I was terminated from my employment on September the 2nd. And there's a lot of circumstances behind that, and I won't discuss those in this podcast because there's a lot of legalese behind the scenes. So I won't say that because I don't want to mess up anything that I got going on with that. But I was released from my job on September the 2nd. My wife, like I said, had left to go go up to her dad's and stay with him and take care of him while he was sick, getting him a liver transplant and things of this nature. So she calls me that day. I get home because they fired me before the end of the business day. So I got home a little early. She calls and she says, "What's going on, babe?" I told her about my day, and she says jokingly to me on the phone, she's like, "You act like they fired you or something." And I got real silent. I was like, "You know, how'd you know?" So, that's when she found out that I was terminated from my position, and instantly, the stress filled me. But because she was there and I was here, I really couldn't see the stress on her face, but I can definitely hear it in her voice. So at this point, I was so stressed out because the termination was just a shock, and it was such it was one of those things that it blindsided me. I didn't see it coming. So having to do what I had to do, I started driving Uber on a full-time basis, and trying to make that dollar stretch, man. Trying to make sure that we ate, trying to make sure that bills were still paid. I mean, let me tell you something right quick, is that any of us, unless you're sitting on a stack, many of us are 1 or 2 paychecks away from being homeless or being on the street, and we were there. We were there at the end of 22. We were there, and I never understood the sentiment when people say there's no romance without finance, and I really didn't understand that sentiment. Even at 47 years old, I did not understand that sentiment until this happened. And you talk about throwing monkey wrenches and stuff, and a fly in the ointment, and all the little cliches that we use to describe that type of situation. That's what happened. So I'm driving Uber, I'm trying to make, these ends meet. Uber has a program. If anybody that's listening is an Uber driver, if you get to a certain status with Uber, you're able to get, they call it backup money. It's $150 that you can take and borrow from Uber. But of course, there's a drawback to that, and the only drawback to it is that after you take the $150, the next $150 you make, they pay that back. So it's automatic, right? You get a Uber card on that, and so that is how we survived while my wife was gone. Now my job situation didn't get any better. I mean, I couldn't find a job. I mean, and I'm in a booming, not a metropolis, but I was in a booming, in a college town, and different car lots and things of this nature. But I couldn't even find a job. Once I got terminated, I got 2 leads for jobs. Once these 2 particular leads found out that I used to work for this particular dealership, and they found out that I got terminated, they were like nothing. They didn't want nothing else to do with me, right? The one dealership I went to a BMW dealership, and the sales manager at the BMW dealership knew the sales manager at my old dealership. They were neighbors, so I knew that was a no-go. Another lead that I got was from a former manager at my old dealership. And once they found out what had happened, about my termination and things of that nature, he ghosted me. I'd interviewed with both, but neither one of them called me back. But that's neither here nor there. My wife and I, and now there was a period of about a month and a half, maybe two almost, that I didn't see my wife. We talked on the phone, we videoed and things of that nature, but excuse me, I didn't see her. So I went up, me and Zariah and Terry Jr., we went up to Illinois to see her. We hadn't been forever. And so there was an idea of staying with her father. And we were going to do that, And so I went and applied to 2 dealerships of the brand that I sold when I was here. I'm not going to get into it. I'm not going to name drop anything like that. But I went to 2 dealerships in Illinois, one in Tinley Park and the other in Madison. The one in Tinley Park was going to, kind of showed a lot of interest. But because of my resume and because that old dealership was on my resume, they never called me back, So my wife and I decided that moving in with her dad wouldn't have been the best move for us as a family. So we decided not to. So me and the kids and I, we came back here and came back home, and she stayed, with her dad until he had his transplant surgery, and she saw him all the way to health, and then she came home. And when she got back here, I think she came home maybe sometime early October, maybe middle of October, right before Halloween. She goes home, and I can tell that the time away from her had really done a number on her, did a number on me too. And it just got really, really dicey between me and her. So she, we got into a verbal altercation one day, not an altercation, but a verbal conversation, and it got spirited. And she said to me that she wanted a divorce. This is in, again, maybe mid-October, late October. And she said she wanted a divorce. Now, as a man, I will tell you, if you love your spouse, love her for real. There's no replacement for true love. I remember, in this conversation that me and her had, she was very spirited, and she was like, you're not my guy. You're not there for me. You don't do this. You don't do that. Fellas, listen, man. This podcast is going to be based on helping men, right? Because we walk out a lot of things, and we show one way, but perceive another way, or people perceive us one way, and we act another way. And so, she told me all this stuff, and I was just like, whatever. Well, I mean, I tried. I mean, I'm doing all I can. I'm on the struggle bus too. I just spent the last 2.5 months without my wife. I was on the struggle bus, and so we was at an impasse. And she told me she wanted a divorce, and she, was making plans. She was going to get an attorney. She had moved out of the bedroom. She did a lot of things. And it was messy. It was messy. It was tough. It was a tough time for me emotionally. Still not being able to get a job. Still trying to take care of her. Just, and that was life. And it was really rough emotionally. So she made a post on Facebook, and because a lot of people was kind of questioning what was going on. And so I made a response video, not a response to her per se, but just in response to her post. And so a lot of people were like, oh, what's going on with y'all? I mean, I'm getting inboxes, things of this nature. Right here, let me say this. If you have people in your circle who are not for you, cut them loose. And you know how it is. When it's two individuals and they, those people have individual friends and, individual family, things of this nature. People love to take sides. And that is what happened in this case, is that people took sides and, people were upset, on both sides of the spectrum. And so some words were said from people that I knew, what I'm saying? It was, I'm not sure on her side, but I just know on my side, there was a lot of people that had something to say, was very negative. Some people, there were some people that were negative, not in the sense of, to try to destroy what we had. They're just like, hey, you're my friend, and I want you to be okay, and things of nature. But at any rate, my wife told me that I never championed for her. And that's what made a lot of things difficult for her, because I didn't champion for her. And so it just went downhill. It just went downhill. And, my wife and I, even now, we are in a better place. She decided, that she didn't want the divorce, and we were going to try to work it out, and things of this nature. And so we had Thanksgiving, we had family over. That was good. Still, as a man, still dealing with emotional stuff. I'll tell you something, fellas. I'm going to say this too. I'm going to be interjecting stuff the entire time, I'm sure. But fellas, listen, man. If you're feeling a way about something, man, speak your piece. One of the things that I did, one of the mistakes that I made, is that I did not speak what I felt. And it changed the way I moved. And it changed the way I felt about things. It changed the way I moved around the house. It changed the way I did certain things, social media stuff. I kind of dropped off social media for a minute. I let the panel edition of this podcast go. Gave the reins to one of my brothers, Kevin, and I just couldn't. And I just kind of shut down. One of the things that we cannot do, fellas, is to shut down. When you're in a situation like that, you cannot shut down. Also, though, a good piece of advice for men is to take accountability for every single thing that you've done. This is what happened. It's another instance. This happened recently. Now, those of you that know me know that back in the day, I had issues with having conversations with people inappropriately that I shouldn't have been having as a married man, right? So there was an instance. I went home to see my grandbabies. This was back in, before Christmas. So it was sometime at Thanksgiving, right around after Thanksgiving, actually. And I went home for a week and to see my grandbabies and my daughters. And I reached out to a young lady that I had an inappropriate conversation with years ago. But the fact that I reached out to her was the disrespect. Even though the young lady never reached back out to me, that matters not. All right, it's the fact that I reached out to her, and so that put the marriage back in jeopardy again. Right. So I said that to say this is that don't keep putting your situation or your marriage or your relationship back in the same turmoil, right? Because a great pastor told me, Pastor Gregory Mostella, said to me in a group chat that we have, me, my wife, Apostle Michelle Mostella and Pastor Greg, we have a chat, and he said to me, when you injure the relationship, when you make the mistake, when you make the bad choice, when you jack up, when you do that, you have to make sure, as men, we have to make sure that we cultivate and fix and heal and help heal the injury that we created. What a lot of men do is a lot of men will injure something, or will injure a relationship, will make a mess of something, or make a bad choice, or do something crazy, and then get mad at the chick get mad at the female because she ain't over it. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't get mad at her because she's not over it, and you just have to take the bumps and the bruises. That's real talk. When people say you got to take the bumps and the bruises, that's real. And so I had to take the bumps and the bruises, and I'm still taking the bumps and the bruises. But I can tell you that my wife and I are in such a better place now than we were before. There were some issues that I had to work out, doing more things around the house, and amongst other things. But what I did as a man, though, I really had to look in the mirror, and I had to step away from a lot of stuff, social media, my podcast, this, what I'm doing. I had to step away from it, but I wanted to get back to this because there's so much that men need to know that somebody hasn't told, some men haven't told. And I got a story to tell. And if you guys have listened to any of my podcasts in the past, if you heard the origin, the 10-part series I did about my life and all that, if you understand my struggle and what I've been through. So Thanksgiving, like I said, we had family over, and Pastor Michelle or Apostle Michelle reached out to us and gave us their marriage counseling situation. Because they're marriage counselors and they do have programs and things, and so they gifted me and my wife their marriage counseling. So we've been doing that, and then we've gotten back in church, and we've done a lot of things together, and we're just in a better place. So mind you, still haven't got a job, right? Still haven't got a job. Jobs are just so hard to come by. So my wife had a brilliant idea, and she says to me, take your old employer, your last employer, off of your resume and see what happens. And so, I did that. And as soon as I did that, jobs started calling. Can you come in, do this and do that? And there were certain things I didn't want to do because I know how my family roll. I know what it takes to run this household. I know how much approximately a month it takes to run this household. And, these jobs I was getting offered, wasn't going to do it. Right. So I finally took a job. Well, actually, I applied to be a police officer. Right. That's what I said. I applied to police officer here in Columbia. And I had someone reach out to me that was close to me. And they said to me, well, Terry, they're not going to hire you, buddy. You're a little old. They're gonna show calls to put you through the academy. They got to pay for that, this and that, and you're just too old and not going to do that. And so one of the interview guys, he called me up to come and take the test to be a police officer. And I told him, I said, I was told I was too old, so I don't want to waste you guys' time. And when I tell you, he had the look of what you just say to me. It was one of those things where he said to me, like, you gotta be, Are you serious right now? He gave me the little boozy. He gave me this.
Hey, bro, come on now, dog. Come on, man.
When I tell you, he gave me that over the phone. I was like, okay. And so he convinced me to come in and take the test. I went in, took the test, passed it. So he set me up for an interview to meet with the chief. I was like, all right, whatever. I'm not gonna take this job. And so in the meantime, I had interviewed with the Missouri Department of Corrections. And I took that interview as a goof. Like, ain't nobody gonna, me in a prison, please. And so I went, interviewed. They offered me a job on the spot, and that's probably because the DOC need people. But they offered me the job, and I was like, all right, let me jump on it. And so I accepted that position, went through the academy, graduated. So I am one of Missouri's Department of Corrections newest officers. I am located at an institution here in Missouri, in Fulton County, as a matter of fact. And I'm excited about that. I'm really, really excited about that. If any of you guys follow me on Facebook, I have my graduation walk that I did, and I actually did the class speech for the graduation. So, I was ready. Turn it down. I was feeling excited. My class actually nominated me to do the class speech for graduation, and so I did that. And that was one of my proudest moments, that my wife was sitting front row for me. So here's what I'll say is that it's not how you start, it's how you finish. And we ended 22 on a good note. My wife and I, like I said, we were still kind of rocky. But God is going to see fit for either the marriage to work out or that's just what I believe. I believe that God's going to do it. So it's been strange. 2022 was a strange year. And I've been walking on this rock for 47 years, man. I've never experienced any year like I've experienced in 2022. But I tell you, I'm thankful for it. I'm thankful for everything that I've been through. Why? Because I know that when this is over, this is a setup, and God is going to bring us through the storm. So my encouraging word for you on this episode is that no matter how it looks, no matter how it feels, even if you cannot see the light at the end of that tunnel, please, if you are at the end of your rope, I used to be a part of a ministry back in North Carolina called Hang On Ministry. And their base was, when you get to the end of your rope, tie a knot at the end of it and hang on. Because God's He's gonna open doors. He's gonna bring people into your life. Situations gonna change. Doors are gonna open. Things of this nature, and God's gonna do it. You just gotta believe and hold on. As a man, though, we still struggle. As men, we still struggle, and that is what this podcast is gonna be about moving forward. I am gonna have guests on the show. Me and counselors, pastors, everybody. I'm going to have different people on the show. And I want for every man that listens to this podcast to take notes, because I'm going to be dropping nuggets and dropping pearls of wisdom that some of us men need. Because here it is. I mean, I've been on this thing, like I said before, I've been walking this rock for 47 years, man. I've done a lot of things. I've made a lot of bad choices. And if you need to recap on who you're listening to, go on back down there to the Origin series, listen to that. And then you'll get a gist of who you're talking to or who you're listening to. My name is Terry. I'm a father of 5. I'm the husband of 1 wife, father of 5 children, grandfather to 5 grandbabies. I make mistakes. I made bad choices. I continue to make bad choices, and the goal is to shorten up those or make those bad decisions way less. And so with every single lesson that I learn, I try to limit my mistakes and bad choices. That's what this podcast is about. This podcast is about helping men eliminate the bad choices and the bad decisions. Now, this podcast will go live. It's very random. I haven't set up a date to where I'm be uploading those. So just make sure that you keep your notifications on whatever podcast platform you're listening to. Because whenever I upload an episode, it's going to send you a notification letting you know there's a new episode. The panel edition with me, Kev, E. Digger, and Quinn goes live on Facebook on Sundays at 2:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. If you want to watch us on video, please go over there and check us out. If you're listening to this and you stumbled upon this by mistake, do me a favor, pop the subscribe button. Check me out. I got a lot of things to say. I'm going to take you guys on a crazy journey, right? There's a reason why this podcast is called the Knucklehead Chronicles. I can promise you, and we'll recap some of the origin, give you some stories. My goal, I'm gonna speak into existence. My goal for this podcast is going to be the number one storytelling podcast on your podcast platform. Your podcast platform, that is. I want to be number one, close to the top, right? But right now, I'm going to get out of here. I want to thank everyone who's listened to this podcast. If you like this podcast, please click and subscribe. Go to the website at Knucklehead Chronicles Podcast at podbean.com. No, is it? Yeah. Knucklehead Chronicles Podcast at podbean.com. That's the email. Knucklehead Chronicles Podcast .podbean.com. That's the website. Knucklehead Chronicles Podcast at Gmail is the email. So send me an email, any show ideas. But thank you guys for listening. I really, really appreciate y'all. And we'll see you on the next episode. Another one I wanted.
Thank you for listening. I hope I didn't fry your brain too bad. Come back through and give me another chance. You can listen on all platforms and visit us at knuckleheadchroniclespodcast.podbean.com. Until next time, in the words of the incomparable Jerry Springer, take care of yourself and each other.